Okay, so we are for the next few weeks at least, we're going to be working on IA. So you'll be working in this IA module for most of the time. And so we kind of went through this presentation and the timeline and stuff last week. And really, what we're going to talk about today is we are going to look at this first assignment, which is the IA prep. So when you're working on this IA prep, you can refer to all of the things in this module. So you can look back at this overview presentation. You can look at if you need to rewatch the live class video. You can look through the database presentation from the librarian if you're thinking you might want to do a database one, even though we kind of advised against it. There's formatting guide and kind of this basic explanation. You can look through those to help guide you. The rubrics for all 5 sections are here, and you can refer to them. This section about choosing a topic, there's some websites and some references in there for places to maybe look at things. And then if you need to check to see if somebody has already kind of claimed a topic, you can look at the who's doing what page. But I'm going to go ahead and so when you click on this assignment for IA prep, which right now that's the only assignment you guys can see because that's the very first one. So the other ones are not published yet. So when you open it, it's going to look like this. There's a link here. When you click on this link, it's going to force you to make a copy of the document, and it's a Google slide. So when you click on it, it'll say make a copy. When you do, then it'll open it up for you in Google Drive. Okay. And when you go to submit it, it just has some directions here. You need to make sure that you share it via the URL when you submit, and make sure that you have changed the share settings on the Google slide file itself. Because if you don't change it to AISD, if it just says like private or only to you or something like that, then I will not be able to see it when I click on the link. Okay. So when you click on that link and make a copy of it, this is what it's going to look like. So it's IA chemistry or IB chemistry, IA prep sheet. And basically what this Google Slides is doing is it's breaking down sort of all the planning to help you, to kind of provide a guide for you. So it says thoroughly write your answers to the following questions. And so the first thing is your research question. And so your research question should be phrased very specifically. It should say like, how does, and then you fill in the blank for whatever your independent variable is that you're choosing, affect the blank, and the second blank is your dependent variable. So for example, maybe, I'm going to say, how does temperature affect the rate of reaction between, and I might list, 2 different chemicals. Okay. Or how does, mass affect the amount of calories from a certain type of chip or a certain type of food. Okay. Because that's something related to calorimetry. How does trying to think of another one off the top of my head. How does pH affect the whatever? So you're choosing your own independent dependent variable, but they should fit and be worded into a specific research question using this format. Okay, as we looked at last week. So after your research question, the next area is where you're going to think about personal engagement. So it just says you're going to add a text box, or you can type in this text box and just change the color. It says write 3 to 5 sentences explaining why you gravitated towards this topic. So why does this topic or investigation interest you? What motivated you to select this research question? Does your research relate to a scientific process that impacts your daily life? Why is this scientifically interesting, or why is this a scientifically interesting question? Why are you curious about it? Does it relate to your life outside of school, your future career path, whatever? Don't just make something up. So think about, why did you choose that? What made you, out of all the possibilities that you could have chosen, why is that the one thing that you chose to focus on? Because there has to be some kind of reason. And so all these things, all these questions here are to help guide you in writing a few sentences about your personal engagement here. Then you have background information. So what background information do you need? And it says just write the topic. So for example, if I was going to do that one where I talked about temperature affecting the rate of reaction between certain chemicals, like maybe between like hydrochloric acid and zinc or something like that, then I would need to research rates of reaction, which is kinetics, which is topic 6. I would need to maybe research, if there's any background information on how temperature affects rate of reaction. I maybe could research the specific reaction that I'm going to be using. So if I was doing like hydrochloric acid and zinc, maybe I would research those substances and I would research if there's information on their reaction. So you can kind of just list your broad topics and you can come back to it later when you're doing your actual research for your background information. Okay. What are your variables? So remember, you need an independent variable and a dependent variable. They should be in your research question. So if you've already written your research question, this should be fairly easy to do. So if I use that example of like, how does temperature affect the rate of reaction between zinc and hydrochloric acid, then my independent variable would be temperature, because that's what I'm going to change. I'm going to test different temperatures of solutions. And then my dependent variable would be the time or the rate of reaction. Okay. You also need to list all your controlled variables. So you have one independent variable that you're changing, one dependent variable that you're measuring. Everything else should be controlled. So if I'm doing that one where I'm testing temperature and rate of reaction, then I would want to control everything else. So I would want to make sure that my masses of zinc are all the same, that my volumes and my concentrations of my hydrochloric acid solution are all the same, that I'm using the same balance to measure all my masses. I'm using the same size beaker to do my reaction in. I'm doing them all in the same location. So my atmospheric pressure and my room temperature is kept the same. And there are several other things, but you want to think about what is staying the same for every trial, because there should be several things you should be able to list under controlled variables. Your hypothesis. So in an if-then format, what is your hypothesis? This means like, what do you think is going to happen? So based on your background research, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that, so I might say, if the temperature increases, the rate of reaction will increase. Or I might say, if the temperature decreases, the rate of reaction will decrease. If I say that, if the temperature increases, the rate of reaction decreases. So you can word it however you want, as long as you're doing that if-then format, and you should refer to your independent and your dependent variable here as well. If the independent variable does this, then the dependent variable will do this in response, okay? And again, this should be kind of based off of some of your background research. It shouldn't be a complete guess, okay? But it should be based somewhat off your background research. Then you want to list your materials. So what are you going to need? And you need to include measurements and be exact. So if you're going to use cups, don't say a few cups, say 4 16-ounce cups. If you're going to use beakers, don't just say a few beakers. Say I need 5 200 milliliter beakers, or whatever size, or I need, a graduated cylinder, and make sure you list what size. For things like graduated cylinders, for burettes, for balances, for thermometers, anything that's measuring something, make sure you also list the uncertainties. So if I'm testing something that I need to measure temperature, and I need to say a thermometer, but it's a thermometer, and then in parentheses, I could put like plus or minus 0.5 degrees Celsius. Okay. Or if it's a digital thermometer, it might be plus or minus 0.1 degrees Celsius, because anything digital will be more exact. Okay. Think through all your steps of your setup. So when you're going through and you're setting up how you're going to do the experiment, how you're going to collect data, think about what materials, what equipment, what chemicals, and all that will you need, and the sizes of things, the uncertainties of anything that's measuring data. And because you have to include all that kind of in a bulleted list, you have to include a list of your materials on your final write-up. A drawing of a setup. So how do you think it might look like? You can draw it on a piece of paper and like upload the picture here to this slide. You can use clip art and draw something. If there's something where you can find a picture online and you can just type and annotate the picture, you can do that as well. But it helps to visualize how exactly is this going to look when you set it up, okay? Safety, you always have to consider safety. So are you using a heating source? Are you using any kind of electrical power tools? Are you using chemicals, which most of you guys should be saying yes on that one? Are you using glassware? Again, most likely you'll be saying yes on that one. Are you using any kind of sharp objects, lasers, or anything else that can cause immediate harm to anyone? And if you say yes to any of them, then you need to tell me like, what are you using, and kind of explain it a little bit. Okay. Then your procedures. Now there's two different slides for procedures. If you need to add more, you can add more slides. Okay. Because your procedure, it's going to be multiple steps. You're going to number them in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until you get done. And you want to be thorough. Okay. So you need to be specific, because you're writing this procedure, and I should be able to take this procedure and I should be able to take it to one of the other science teachers, and they should be able to set up your experiment and do it exactly like you did. So when you're writing your procedures, don't take shortcuts just because you know what you want to do, or you think I might know, because you've talked to me about it or something like that. Be very specific and thorough, because you want this to be in science. When scientists do research, their procedures have to be repeatable. That means that somebody else in a different lab, possibly like in a different country, should be able to follow their procedure, and they should be able to do the exact same experiment, and so that they can compare data and see if they got similar data, or if it's really different. Okay. So you want to make sure that your procedures are thorough enough that somebody else who does not know you could follow them and still do the same experiment as you and measure the same data. So there's a second slide on here. If you need to add a third one or more than 3, that's fine. And if you need to add slides anywhere else, like if there's not enough space on the materials or the drawing setup, because the material setup you might need more space for that. If you need to add another slide in here for background information or the personal engagement because you run out of room, that's fine too. If you need to add them, just add a slide in wherever you need to. But this is what you guys are going to be working on today and Wednesday. Okay. And so because it's due on Thursday night, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to check them on Thursday night or Friday morning, because on Friday we will not be having Zoom class. So if you guys have not heard from other teachers, on Friday, it is a totally asynchronous day. It's still a B day, but it's totally asynchronous, meaning that anybody who comes in person will not come in person. And even those of you who stay home and do virtual, we will not have any Zoom calls for any classes on Friday, like we normally do. The only exception would be like if you have a teacher who maybe has set up like a one-on-one, tutorial session for you. Like I know there's some teachers that are setting up to do like meetings or something with specific students, but we won't have like our whole class Zoom calls like we normally do. Okay. And so that's why for today and Wednesday, I want you guys to really be working on this so that you have something to share and submit to me on Thursday. That way I can give you some feedback. And on that asynchronous day on Friday, if you need to go change anything, you can go be working on this on your own after I've given you feedback. Or if you don't need to change anything, then you can start working on the first part, which is like the background research and stuff like that. Okay. And expanding your research, because then next week are the days that if I've approved your prep and your background research and I've said like you're good to go, next week on Wednesday and Friday, because we have a 3-day weekend. So we don't have class Monday next week. So then Tuesday would be an A-day. So I will see you guys next week on Wednesday and Friday. So next week on Wednesday and Friday, and then the week after that, the Tuesday on the week after that, those are the 3 days that are on the schedule for you guys to come in to do data collection. Where if you want to come in and like stay here all day in the room on B days, or you can come on an A day as well. It doesn't have to be a B day. And you can stay in here and work on stuff all day in between when you're joining like Zoom calls for your other classes and things like that. Okay. So I'm going to, let me stop recording.